Welcome to the Football Film Room Show. I'm Nick Kehoe, and we've got another great episode for you today. The offseason is just starting to kick into high gear. We're on the dawn of free agency. You've already seen a few moves made, re-signings, trades. We'll get to some of that in this episode. Also want to dive into Jaxson Dart. Did a lot of analysis on his rookie season, so I want to bring that to you and talk about what I think the Giants need to do to make sure that he continues to grow in years 2 and beyond. But it's all very fast-moving in terms of free agency and transactions and so on and so forth. There's stuff happening even right now as I'm recording, so we obviously won't be able to get to all of it in this episode. Just know whatever we miss, we will try to cover in next week's episode. You can check out footballfilmroom.com. I'll put content on there as well. We'll have you covered. But the first thing I want to start off with today is the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams have a quarterback in Matthew Stafford who just won the MVP in his age 37 season, took his team to the NFC Championship game where they came up just short, 31-27, announced he's coming back, and just as things stand today, I want you all to really soak this in, really think about this. Are the Rams a Super Bowl contender next year? I think we all agree that they are, right? And knowing that Matthew Stafford is coming back next season, is there anyone out there who truly thinks that the Rams' focus this offseason should be on getting a quarterback of the future? No, I have nothing against planning for the future, having some sort of contingency plan, but I think everyone would agree that the approach the Rams should be taking this offseason is to knock that damn door down that's in their way and keeping them from getting to the Super Bowl. That they should be doing everything in their power to get over the hump because they don't know how much time they have left with Stafford. They don't know how long this window is with him. Could only be one more year. Worry about rebuilding when it's time to rebuild if you have a team that's ready to win a Super Bowl right now. The reason I wanted to present that situation to you and make you all just think deeply about where the Rams are right now and what the logical approach is because I want to go back to 2020. Very briefly, won't spend too much time on this, but the Packers were in a very similar situation. Now we'll start with the 2020 offseason. The Packers had just come off of an NFC Championship game loss to the 49ers. They got blown out, but they were knocking on the door. Aaron Rodgers was actually 1 year younger than Matthew Stafford is right now. Still clearly had it. Physical skills had not diminished. And I think everyone recognized that, okay, this is one final window for Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. They are on the doorstep. They're not that far away. They need to make a couple moves, and they could be in the big game. And then, of course, as we all know, they go on to draft Jordan Love. They use their first round and actually a fourth-round pick to trade up to take him. Now, I don't want to focus on that move so much. I think the Jordan Love draft pick has worked out for Green Bay, so not going to criticize that. But the Packers didn't make any moves during the 2020 offseason to try to knock that door down and get to the Super Bowl. And then Aaron Rodgers would go on to, of course, have one of the best seasons of his career. Won the MVP during his age 37 season, just like Matthew Stafford did. Took his team to the NFC Championship game, just like Matthew Stafford did. Played well in that NFC Championship game, but lost 31-26, just like Stafford did, although Stafford lost 31-27. Both those games, strangely enough, ended with Rodgers and Stafford unable to get their teams into the end zone at the end of the game to either tie the game or take the lead. It really is freaky how similar these situations are. This is why I always say the NFL is cyclical, why I love talking about history with you. But the Packers then, coming out of that 2020 season, were in a nearly identical situation to what the Rams are in right now. Rodgers proved he still had it, played at an MVP level. Even though you couldn't guarantee he was going to be an MVP again in 2021, he clearly still had it, clearly was still playing very high-level football, winning football. And I know there was some back and forth about Rodgers asking to be traded at that point, but the Packers knew they weren't going to do that. So they knew they had Rodgers coming back for his age 38 season, just like the Rams do with Matthew Stafford next year. And yet, once again, despite being 5 points away from the Super Bowl, the Packers did not decide to kick the door in and do everything in their power to get to the Super Bowl when they had been on the verge and they had roughly the same team coming back. They didn't make a move like the Eagles did in 2022 when they traded for A.J. Brown. A move that's worked out pretty well, by the way. 2 Super Bowl appearances, 1 Super Bowl win. I don't think they regret that trade at all. But the Packers didn't do that. They didn't use their draft picks to move up in the draft and get a guy who could contribute right away. They really didn't even participate in free agency, which has kind of been their thing in the past. Their biggest addition was a linebacker, Devondre Campbell, who had a good year with them in 2021. Of course, his time in Green Bay fizzled out with some issues, and then, of course, the same thing happened in San Francisco. But he wasn't a win-now player. He wasn't someone that was going to get them over the hump. Packers didn't make that move. And even if you want to say they couldn't trust that Aaron Rodgers would be able to stay healthy, they didn't know if he would have a similar type season in 2021, when the Packers were actually having that similar season and Aaron Rodgers was on his way to winning his second straight MVP, they had the opportunity to sign Odell Beckham Jr. for pretty much a bag of footballs. They didn't go out and do it, though. I guess they made a league minimum offer. You know who did swoop him up for 2 bags of footballs? The Rams. And, of course, the Rams would go on to, with the help from Odell Beckham Jr., win the Super Bowl that year. The Packers, on the other hand, it was clear that their philosophy was we don't want to do anything to sacrifice our ability to build a good team in the future. So despite the fact that they were knocking on the doorstep of the Super Bowl with an all-time great quarterback still playing at an MVP level, they didn't do anything to put themselves over the top because they didn't want to have a couple down years. They wanted to make sure that they had consistent, sustained success after Aaron Rodgers left. And I think some people now are saying that was the right decision. But that's really odd because if you look at the situation the Rams are in right now, I think it's crystal clear, and everyone would agree, that their move this offseason should be to go all in. Push all their chips into the middle of the table. Because you don't get these opportunities very often. Super Bowl windows don't come around very often. So when you're in one, you do everything you can to take advantage. You worry about rebuilding later. And if I had to guess, I'd say that one regret of Packers GM Brian Gutekunst is that he didn't take advantage of the time with Aaron Rodgers at the end of his career when he was still playing at an MVP level. Even with Jordan Love, let's remove the Jordan Love decision. Let's say they drafted Jordan Love, no problem with that. He's turned out to be a good quarterback. He's going to continue to be a good quarterback, I believe. But even with Jordan Love, the Packers could have made other moves. Some would have been big game hunting moves, but they could have made like that Odell Beckham Jr. move I just talked about that wouldn't have cost them a lot. And the sad thing about all this for the Packers is that no matter what they did during the 2020 and 2021 offseason, they could have given up just about all of their draft picks and signed a bunch of free agents. None of that would have stopped them from being in the exact same position they're in right now. Because they have just one player from those draft classes, aside from Jordan Love, who's still on the team. That's linebacker Isaiah McDuffie. Every other draft pick from those 2 classes is not on the Packers anymore. So all that sacrificing of going all in during a Super Bowl window just so they could have success beyond Aaron Rodgers, what has that gotten them? 1 playoff win in 3 years. The Rams, on the other hand, went all in 2021, won the Super Bowl, then had to start rebuilding, slowly built things back up, and in the same time frame since that Super Bowl win in 2021, they've won 3 playoff games. Packers have won just 1. And they appear to be in better shape and more likely shape to get back to the big game next year. Now, give credit to Goody. I think he has, without saying it or acknowledging it publicly, I think he realized the mistake he made in 2020 and 2021. So give him credit last year for trading for Micah Parsons, for instance. But I think those 2020 and 2021 Packers teams, they should serve as a cautionary tale for general managers who are more concerned with 3 years from now than the present, especially for a team that in the present has the opportunity to win a Super Bowl. You don't take those opportunities lightly. You don't toss them to the side. You don't say, oh yeah, we'll be back. And I think judging by the move we just saw the Rams make, trading for cornerback Trent McDuffie, they are crystal clear on this. They are going all in, as they should. Now, I love the Rams' decision to go out and get McDuffie. He is one of the more versatile cornerbacks in all of the NFL. He obviously addresses a need that the Rams had all season. Their secondary, their cornerbacks especially, they struggled, particularly against better passing games and good receivers. You saw it in the NFC Championship game against JSN. So this was a position that everyone knew they needed to address, and they did in a big way. They sent the Chiefs one of their 2 first-round picks, their 29th overall selection this year. They also sent a 5th rounder and a 6th rounder from this year, and then a 2027 third rounder. And they got a player in McDuffie who can do a number of different things. I think he's at his best as a slot corner. That's where he played predominantly during the 2023 season when he was a first-team AP All-Pro with the Chiefs. Now, he did have to kick outside in 2024 after the Chiefs moved on for some other cornerbacks, and he still held his own. I think he was second-team All-Pro that year. But I think he's best suited in the slot for a number of different reasons. I think, one, he's probably most comfortable there in coverage. He certainly seems the most comfortable there in coverage, although he can play anywhere. But I think another aspect of his game is that he's a really good blitzer. Steve Spagnuolo used him often on his slot pressures, and that's something that defensive coordinator Chris Shula, I think, is really going to enjoy. He's going to be able to move McDuffie outside, inside, use him in his pressure schemes occasionally here and there. And having a cornerback like that, who is as versatile as McDuffie is, allows you to do a lot more on defense. You can disguise. Teams can't get an indicator that, based on where McDuffie is aligned on the field, we know what coverage or what pressure scheme we're going to get. So it'll be interesting to see how he uses him. And he's a young player, 25, a guy who helps them win now and will help them win in the future. So I think this is just a brilliant move. And on top of that, look, they're in good position because they have another first-round draft pick. They have the 13th overall pick that they got from the Falcons in last year's draft. So who knows what they'll do with that. But it's crystal clear that the Rams are going all in, as they should, and they're looking to take advantage of this window with Matthew Stafford. The next move to talk about is the Texans trading with the Lions for running back David Montgomery. I think the thing you're looking for in these really early offseason moves is to see if teams recognize where their holes are. They generally do. As we just mentioned, the Rams recognized that cornerback was a position they needed to address and needed to do it right away. The Texans, I don't know that it was just necessarily that they needed to address the running back position, but Montgomery is a hard runner, good in the yards after contact category, and that's what they need. They need a tougher element to their offense because aside from C.J. Stroud getting exposed versus pressure against the Patriots in the playoffs, that Patriots defense exposed just the lack of physicality and physical toughness that the Texans have on offense. And that's what they needed to get out of that game with a win. When C.J. Stroud was not seeing the field, playing too fast, throwing the ball to the other team, there needed to be some way to calm him down. And generally what you do in those situations is you lean on the run game. So it's good to have a run game that is tough, can move the line of scrimmage against any front. Doesn't matter how many you put in the box, they can get a little bit of breathing room for your quarterback. But they couldn't do any of that. Now, it started with the offensive line. So the move to get David Montgomery, it's not going to solve all their issues. But I think it's one step in the right direction in terms of getting you a tough player for the offensive side of the ball that can help you pick up some tough yards. And even if it isn't blocked perfectly, because he does a good job of running through contact, he can get you some yards on early downs. He can keep you in good situations. He can help you settle down the game when C.J. Stroud isn't necessarily coming out of the gate firing on all cylinders. So a good move, not a complete team-changing one, but a sign that they're going to be moving in the right direction this offseason. Obviously, that offensive line has to be addressed, but this is a good start. Now, the last topic I want to talk about is Jaxson Dart. Spent a lot of time over the last few weeks watching every single one of his snaps from this season. I did a full-on 50-plus play analysis over at footballfilmroom.com, so you can go over there and check out in great detail how I saw his season. But let me just start with this. As you all have probably figured out by now, I love NFL history, love NFL films. Not only did I spend 5 years working at NFL films, but long before that, I was using my VHS to record the Super Bowl highlight film marathons that were on the night before and the morning of the Super Bowl when I was a kid. And there's a line of narration from the Super Bowl 19 highlight video that stands out and makes me think of Jaxson Dart. Now, that Super Bowl was between the 49ers and Dolphins, 1984 season, Joe Montana versus Dan Marino. Marino won the MVP that season, was doing things in just his second year that no one had really ever seen before, and quite frankly, you go back and look at his numbers, 48 touchdown passes, 5,000 passing yards in a 16-game season in 1984. That's tough to do today, and he did it back in 1984. But as you probably know, he would not win the Super Bowl that year. The 49ers would. And Joe Montana not only won the Super Bowl MVP, but he set the record for passing yards in the Super Bowl and rushing yards by a quarterback in the Super Bowl in the same game that afternoon. And the line of narration that I'm talking about from that highlight video was this. As good of a passer as Joe Montana is, he may not be in Dan Marino's class. But as great of a passer as Dan Marino is, he can't beat you as many ways as Montana can. No, I'm not comparing Jaxson Dart to Joe Montana or to Dan Marino. I don't think his playing style is like either of those quarterbacks. But it's that last part of that line that sort of stuck with me. Because I think Jaxson Dart, he can beat you in so many different ways. And that's why if you're a Giant fan, if you're John Harbaugh, the front office, Matt Nagy, the offensive coordinator, you should be very excited about Jaxson Dart because he can win in so many different ways. He's comfortable in the quick passing game, and a lot of that comes from his time with Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. Those quick passes at RPO game. He's very comfortable, very proficient when he sticks with that. When he plays from the pocket, he's shown the ability to play with toughness from within the pocket, to deliver the ball and take a hit if he needs to downfield. He's shown the ability to manipulate defenders on throws at the intermediate level. And you know how important that can be and how effective that can make you as a quarterback if you can move and manipulate defenders and create windows. Just look at the way Matthew Stafford plays. Dart can throw on the run in either direction, and that helps him when he's scrambling. That means the offense can call design boots in either direction. And then, of course, he can make plays with his legs. And his athleticism, his physical talent in general, it kind of sneaks up on you because he doesn't have a powerful arm, but his arm is a little stronger than at first glance when you start watching him on film repeatedly. His athleticism, he's not Josh Allen, but then you watch him play, and if there's an escape lane right in front of him, he picks up 20 yards in a hurry. Very similar to Drake May, actually, where he doesn't just scramble for a first down here or there. He'll pick up big chunks of yards if you give him the opportunity. So he gives defensive coordinators a lot to think about. But I think the thing with Jaxson Dart is that for every single one of those strengths that I just mentioned, he needs refinement. He needs to improve his ability to play from the pocket. He needs better accuracy. In fact, I really actually like his ball placement better than his accuracy. And that might sound weird, but the way I distinguish those two is accuracy is just, are you hitting the target? Are you throwing the ball where you want to throw it? Are you hitting your receiver in the number on his jersey that you were aiming for? That's accuracy. That's the actual act of throwing the ball. Ball placement to me is, are you making the right type of throw? Are you making the right type of throw based on the coverage? Are you feathering the ball when you need to? Are you throwing with touch when you need to? Are you throwing with zip when you need to? Are you slowing your receivers down in a void in the zone? Are you keeping them from getting drilled by a defender who's closing from in front of them? So ball placement, I think you see with Jaxson Dart, he always makes or almost always makes the right type of throw. It's his accuracy that needs a little more improvement. Sometimes he'll leave a little meat on the bone and you won't get as much yards after the catch. Now, in the past, I would have said you can't count on a quarterback at the NFL level really dramatically improving his accuracy. Because in the past, it kind of just didn't happen. But we've seen it happen more and more recently. Think of guys like Josh Allen. Certainly look at Drake May this past year. He was spraying the ball all over the field in college. Then he completed 70% of his passes with the Patriots, and he was throwing the ball downfield on a regular basis. So quarterbacks can absolutely improve their mechanics. A lot of the offseason work they do. It's just, for me as an analyst and for you as a fan, it's hard to know who exactly is going to be able to do that. We like to believe that every single quarterback is the hardest worker in the world. We like to believe that our favorite quarterback is the hardest worker in the world. We just don't know if they understand what their weaknesses are and take the time and, quite frankly, the money during the offseason to improve that. So that's one area he needs to improve. But to me, the biggest area where Dart needs to improve is his footwork. And this is going to sound boring. No one likes to talk about footwork, and I won't bore you with really the mechanics of it, other than to say too often he drifts back in the pocket instead of having a precise drop where he's matching up the timing of his drop with his receiver's routes. And too often he never even sets his feet. He looks for an escape lane to run. It almost seems like he's maybe watching the rush or predetermining that, hey, on this play, I'm going to look for an escape lane and I'm going to go make a play. And sometimes he can get away with that because he's got great playmaking skills. But very often that leads to him leaving big plays on the field. Had he just stuck with the pass concept, there would have been a wide open receiver. So I think that's why I like to see more out of him. He needs to be more precise with his footwork, needs to plant his foot at the top of his drop, be ready to throw on every play, and use that running, that scrambling, that playmaking ability as a last resort. I know it's hard when you've been a playmaker your entire career, your entire life, but look, we see this in all the playmaking type of quarterbacks. There's sort of a happy medium where you need to find the right lane for them to be in between trying to make things happen and sticking with the design of the offense. Because you're dropping back 40 times a game. This isn't a sandlot. The defense is too good. The defense is too talented at the NFL level. You can't just run around on 50% of your plays. You have to stick with the offense. You have to provide consistent offense. And like I said, there are a lot of elements of what Jaxson Dart does where he shows that he can do that. Right? He'll take those short throws when he's engaged in the quick passing game. He'll take those short throws into tight windows without putting the ball in harm's way. Was really impressed with his total touchdown to turnover ratio. It was 24-7 this year. That's really, really good. And he did that without many receivers to throw to. His first season, surrounded by coach firings and new play callers and so on and so forth. So I'm really intrigued by Jaxson Dart, and I'm really excited about his future because he does have that potential based on his skill set to become a special player. He does. I haven't mentioned this yet, but I think he's just got a really good feel for the game. I talked about that a little bit with the ball placement, but of course you see it when he's running around and escaping pressure in the pocket, finding lanes to run, finding soft spots to throw. He has the ability to move laterally and buy time and then throw the ball downfield. He can also take off, like I said. He's got a really good feel for when to do it all. It just needs to be harnessed. Now, those are the things I'm most focused on with Jaxson Dart. The discussion about him taking too many hits, that's a real one. It deserves to be had. You continue to hear him talk, and you get the feeling that he's not going to change the way he plays. But he needs to. There were too many times this year where he took unnecessary hits. You can talk about the Christian Ellis hit that we all saw on Monday Night Football, where he just, on a 2nd and 13, was just running along the sideline, and instead of getting out, he stayed in bounds, and that allowed a linebacker with a 20-yard head start to just clock him. He missed 2 games due to a concussion, 2+ games. He went to the blue tent 4 times, I think, to be evaluated for concussions. He had plays where he would get a first down, and then instead of running out of bounds when he was near the sidelines, he would stay in bounds to get 2 extra yards and lower his throwing shoulder into a defensive back. In his first start, he had like a 35 or 40-yard run and ended up being called back due to penalty, but he had a long run, and at the end of it, instead of getting down or trying to get away from a defender, he went right at him and didn't just lower his shoulder. He tried to do an Otis Anderson Super Bowl 25 Muhammad Ali style punch with his throwing hand to the guy's helmet. These are the things that you say, on the one hand, yeah, that can energize your team. On the other hand, you say, it does no good for the team to be energized if you're on the sideline and can't play because you got a broken hand. You separated your shoulder. You got a concussion. It does the Giants no good if Jaxson Dart plays at an MVP level for 12 games and then doesn't play for 5 other games. Doesn't do him any good. Everything he does has to be, how do I play 17 games every single year? Doesn't mean change the way you play entirely. Doesn't mean you can't be aggressive. Doesn't mean you can't use your legs. It just means, hey, maybe don't do a John Elway helicopter run on first down in the first quarter of a Week 3 game. Save that for the Super Bowl. Or save it for a Week 12 divisional game, third down in the third quarter or fourth quarter. But just be more judicious about it. I don't know that you can put an exact guardrail on it, but avoid hits if you don't need to take them. I promise you, Jaxson, no one's going to call you a blank willow. Okay? No one's going to do that. Josh Allen slides. Josh Allen gets down, and no one questions his toughness. It's not going to change the way you play, but it will prolong your career, and it will make you more effective, and it will make the Giants' offense and the team as a whole more effective. Now, it's going to be hard for the Giants to reel him in, obviously. They can't just tell him don't take hits. I'm sure they are telling him not to take hits. But I think one thing that will help is what I was saying earlier about the footwork. If he's being drilled and trained to plant his back foot and look to get the ball out, he'll almost be forced to do it, or he'll be more likely to do it, I think. If the Giants continually get on him about making sure that the timing of his drop is in sync with his receivers, he'll see open receivers. He'll see after games that he missed this guy or missed that guy for a big play, a big touchdown, big completion. And I think that's one way to help him become more of a safer quarterback, but a more complete quarterback. But he's really interesting to watch because he is one of those guys that, based on his skill set, based on his feel, everything I was just saying, he can become a superstar. But based on those bad habits and some of those tendencies, he's also very likely to stagnate and not go anywhere. So the next year or two are going to be very important in his development. So if you're the Giants, as far as building the team around him, I don't necessarily have specific advice about which players they should go out and get. What I will say is that they need to dedicate as many resources as they can to the offense this offseason. Give him everything he needs. When you've got a young quarterback that has the potential to be something, everyone in the building, from your head coach to the secretary, needs to be doing everything they can to help make him be successful. The Giants already have some good players on defense, and I'm not saying they won't address their defense, they won't shore things up here or there, but to me the big thing is all your team-building capital, it needs to be on the offensive side of the ball until you've got that thing secure. When you think you've got enough offensive linemen around Jaxson Dart, you go get another. Depth of the offensive line, to me, is more important than anything you do on the other side of the ball. Receiver. Get him playmakers. Get him someone besides Malik Neighbors. You can make that passing game dynamic overnight with that. Get him a running game so he can lean on that running game when he just had his bell rung because he refused to go out of bounds, and he can hand the ball off, and the offense can continue to move the ball without him feeling like he needs to go and run again and make a play after just getting nearly knocked out, right? Give him everything he needs, and then address the defense. And if you can't do that till next offseason, so be it. I don't care. You need to make sure that his development goes in the right direction, above all else. Now, again, if you want to see my full breakdown of Jaxson Dart's rookie season, make sure to subscribe on footballfilmroom.com. You've got to be a founding member to access that particular breakdown, but you can also just be a paid subscriber, and you'll be able to access 99% of our content. Either way, we're doing a 40% discount on both types of subscriptions right now. It's an off-season discount, so be sure to check that out if you're interested. That's it for today's show. I'm sure there will be a lot of news coming in the next week during free agency. As I said earlier, we will cover as much of it as we can on each podcast episode. But I think that's everything I've got for you today, and I'll talk to you next time.